So apparently we have companies thinking that they can kind of dictate to people what they can and can't purchase with their very what's the word I'm looking for here? Meaningless cards. So Visa and Mastercard. I remember, I didn't even want a credit card. I probably still have it in my wallet, but I never wanted a credit card. My parents just handed it me to me one day and like, oh, here you go. So time to start building, build good credit. I was like 14, 15 years old. I never asked them for it. I didn't want one. Nowadays, in this age where people are even more iffy about credit cards with interest and all that crap, Visa, Mastercard, American Express, whatever, they can't really be picky with what people are using the cards for. But apparently they are. Apparently they are. Visa, Mastercard deny direct involvement in gaming censorship amid mass backlash. In an escalating controversy shaking the gaming industry, payment giants Visa and Mastercard have issued statements denying direct involvement in the recent wave of adult-themed game removals from platforms like Steam and itch.io. These denials come amid accusations that the companies, under pressure from activist groups such as the Australian organization Collective Shout, are indirectly enforcing censorship through their policies on high-risk merchants. This has sparked widespread outrage among gamers, developers, and free speech advocates, leading to mass call campaigns, petitions, and calls for regulatory intervention. The Spark. Collective Shout's campaign against harmful content. So basically content that they just don't like. They just don't like. Because the people in these freaking groups are fucking pansies. How they've managed to exist and make their way through this world, being at whatever age they are, is astounding. The controversy traces back to Collective Shout, a feminist advocacy group based in Australia known for campaigning against the objectification of women and what they describe as content that normalizes exploitation. So basically, probably a bunch of very unattractive women who are mad because people like attractive women in their games. This isn't objectification. She's a beautiful woman, made intentionally to be beautiful, because guess what? Contrary to what the left tells you, women like to play as beautiful women. I know. Strange, right? In recent months, the group targeted digital storefronts hosting adult-oriented video games. Adult-oriented? Like, are we talking about flat out, like, porn-type games? Or are we just talking about kind of like Stellar Blade that has a, character who's just very well, created? She's made to look very, very nice. Exactly. When you start trying to blur those lines and you're suddenly calling anything you don't like adult oriented, adult oriented video games, particularly those featuring extreme depictions and themes. Collective Shout argued that such games contribute to real world harm and lobbied payment processors like Visa and Mastercard to withhold services from platforms allowing these titles. According to reports, Collective Shout's efforts include letter writing campaigns and public pressure, claiming that the content violates the processor's own guidelines on prohibited activities. I'm sorry, what? Again, this is not outright porn, okay? Why are the... Again, I already know what this fucking... Actually, hang on. Let's see if they have like a website or something. Well, they are protected posts on Twitter, obviously, because these people, despite the fact that they like to say that they're outspoken, don't like any kind of criticism because they're a bunch of fucking pussies. let's see what else here. We've got, trying to find if there's a picture of them somewhere. About, oh, I saw our team. Welcome to Collective Shaft. I'm an extremely unhappy, miserable cunt, and I don't like you playing games that are fun or have pretty girls in them, because big boobs and pretty faces scare me. Our team. Told ya. Exactly the kinds of people you'd expect. Actually, you know what? I want to see their mission. I want to see what the woman says. Hang on. All right, so here is the welcome to Collective Shout.
Joining with us in believing there can be a better world. A world free from sexploitation. A world where the objectification of women and the sexualization of girls is no longer normal. Hi, I'm Melinda Tankard-Reist. I'm a co-founder of Collective Shout, and I want to extend my personal welcome to our community. We're a movement concerned about the increasing pornification of culture and the way its messages have become entrenched in mainstream society. A movement that knows that presenting distorted and dishonest ideas about women and girls and sexuality and relationships are harmful and damaging. Collective Shout is how we can make a difference together. We are a grassroots campaigns movement, but we don't exist without people like you, willing to bring our voices together as a collective shout. A collective shout against corporations and brands that ignore the harmful effects of pornified ads and products on individuals and communities. A collective shout against advertisers and marketers that sexually exploit women and men to sell products. A collective shout against the media that reinforces and spreads a culture that normalizes objectifying women and sexualizing girls.
Okay, so what she's saying makes sense, but unfortunately, these groups never stick to just this stuff. Instead, they're trying to reach out and basically deem anything they don't like as exploitation. Having an adult female in a video game who is well endowed with good genes, it's not sexual exploitation. They're fictional characters made of pixels. You do not have to worry about them. Okay? They're not real. The fake titties are not going to hurt you. Now, I mean, I completely, get with all of these. I agree with all of them. There needs to be less, things, ads that are very sexualized because they know that people are thirsty. I agree with that. I get tired of seeing those kinds of ads. Sexual exploitation of women and men to sell products. Objectification of women. Again, what define objectification? Because these people are looking at pixels on a screen and saying that's objectifying women. They're fake. The busty fictional character made of pixels is not going to hurt you. And obviously of girls, meaning children, I completely 100% agree. You see a lot of shows or whatever coming out, like on HBO or whatever, where it takes kids or what's meant to be kids. These people are usually played by people well in their fucking 30s, but they're portraying them as children engaging in adult acts, scenarios, making their way through puberty and this and that, the ins and outs of puberty. Which there is a way to go about it without sexualizing it. And then they wonder why there's so many weird, like, Little Tay, right? Apparently opens up an OnlyFans. Apparently there's nothing on it, but there are so many people who signed, subscribed to her OnlyFans thinking that they're going to see a newly fresh 18-year-old fucking nude. So I agree that there is a problem, but going after pixels on a screen is not going to help that problem. You know, it's like when they say that video games cause violence. They don't. People are just violent. Like I say to people, it's like, oh yeah, man, those pesky video games. I wonder what video games Hitler was playing. Oh wait, that's right. Video games don't create the violence. Does it maybe skew people's perception of reality if they're mentally ill? Of course, but so does everything else. If that's the case, then we can't have movies, we can't have TV shows, we can't have books. I mean, look how many people carried out horrible acts because of something they read in a book. Catcher in the Rye. So to say that, video games do this, so does everything else. But we're not banning books. We're not banning movies. We're not. But I agree with these. But unfortunately, like I said, these people don't stop with just that. They like to extend their fucking vulture claws further than they need to. Again, they see this. This is pixels. This is computer generated. Something that someone had to sit online, on the computer and create. It's not a real person. Her fake titties can't hurt you. This is not exploitation, considering it's an adult, someone who's conceivably an adult, but they're also fake. It's not a real person. There might be the real person behind the character, but that character, that person who has consented to be the model for that character. There's no exploitation. But, Clubs argue that such games contribute to real-world harm and lobbied payment processors like Visa and Mastercard to withhold services from platforms allowing these titles. According to reports, collective shout efforts include letter-writing campaigns and public pressure, claiming that the content violates the processor's own guidelines on prohibited activity. The group celebrated the subsequent policy change to Steam and itch.io as victories in their fight. For instance, in July 2025, Steam updated its content guidelines to explicitly prohibit games that breach payment processor standards, resulting in the delisting of over 400 titles. Probably like the games that one of the games that I covered before, where it's just basically outright rape, like violent rape. That stuff I can see them getting mad about and saying, "Hey, that doesn't belong here. You shouldn't allow payment for that." But something like Stellar Blade, or if for whatever reason Final Fantasy, no, there's no reason to go after people buying those titles. If it is a game specifically made to outright abuse the woman in the game, I mean, unfortunately, free speech, you may not like it, but that would be more justifiable than, oh no, I don't like Eve because she has big fucking titties. I don't want this title being sold. You need to decline when someone buys this game because big fake titties scare me. But calling for stricter requirements and intermediaries like Stripe, which processes payments on behalf of Visa and Mastercard. Critics, including game developers and players, argue that collective shout's influence represents an overreach. Yeah. By a small activist group imposing moral standards on global platforms. Titles affected include not just adult games, but also horror experiences like mouthwashing and Vile Exhumed, which were removed despite lacking real-world illegal content. Platforms respond, force compliance, or self-censorship. Steam, owned by Valve, confirmed that developers that the changes were necessary to maintain payment processing capabilities, offering store credits as compensation for affected titles. Itch.io's response was more direct, stating the payment providers like PayPal, Payoneer, and Stripe tied to Visa and Mastercard impose elevated standards and forcing the content to hide or remove certain mature content. To ensure that We can continue to operate. We must prioritize. That's what they were saying. Media steps towards compliance. This is a time critical moment for itch.io. The situation developed rapidly, and we had to act urgently. Visa and Mastercard's denials. No moral judgments. Right. In response to growing backlash, both Visa and Mastercard have publicly denied actively moderating content or pressuring platforms directly. Right. Right. This is a lie. Visa are liars, Mastercard are liars, Stripe are liars. Thank you for reaching out and okay, this is from Visa. As a global company, we follow the laws and regulations everywhere we do business. While we explicitly prohibit illegal activity on our network, we are equally committed to protecting legal commerce. If a transaction is legal, our policy is to process the transaction. We do not make moral judgments or legal purchases made by consumers. Visa does not moderate content sold by merchants, nor do we have the visibility into the specific goods or services sold when we process a transaction. When a legally operating merchant faces an elevated risk of illegal activity, we require enhanced safeguards for the banks supporting those merchants. All right, what's this? List of concrete examples backing Josh Moon's claim that payment processors like Visa, Mastercard, and Stripe do, in fact, make ideological or moral judgments. The Hub, Gab, Subscribestar, WikiLeaks, gun retailers, Alex Jones and InfoWars, medical misinformation sites. We already read that. Mastercard probably does the same thing. Like, we don't do that. And Mastercard's been clarifying recent headlines on gaming content. Mastercard has not evaluated any game or required restrictions of any activity on game creator sites and platforms, contrary to media reports and allegations. Our payment networks follows standards based on the rule of law. Put simply, we allow all lawful purchases on our network. At the same time, we require merchants to have appropriate controls to ensure Mastercard cards cannot be used for unlawful purchases, including illegal adult content. Both Steam and Itch have stated their removal of adult content came from pressure by payment processors, including Mastercard. Furthermore, Mastercard and other payment processors have a documented history of refusing service to Japanese retailers over illegal adult content. These responses have been criticized as evasive by figures like Mark or Grums. This is a lie. Keep calling it. It's the case of itch.io. In the case of itch.io, they put pressure down the chain to Stripe, which is itch.io, which itch.io says is held to a stricter standard by Visa, Mastercard, and Visa. So while MC Visa may claim they don't directly pressure game distribution companies, there are obvious turn page. Indirect pressure, and it's coming from somewhere. Keep calling. The fact that they responded means that we're getting heard. I mean, that's true. Grum's pointed out that itch.io's specific mention of stricter standards from Visa MasterCard as evidence. Fuck out of here. Behind the scenes influence. Despite the denials, neither company has addressed specific allegations from Collective Shouts campaigns or provide details on what enhanced safeguards entail, leading skeptics to view the statements as corporate deflection. They would never do that. Backlash intensify. Backlash intensifies. The gaming community has mobilized in response, overwhelming Visa and Mastercard's customer service lines with complaints. Some reports indicate thousands of calls per day, causing temporary disruptions. Change.org petition demanding transparency and reversal of the policies has surpassed 174,000 signatures, with support arguing that payment processors should not act as moral arbiters. The International Game Developers Association has joined the chorus, calling for clear guidelines and protections against undue influence on creative industries. That's crazy. Broader implication, legislatively, this issue has drawn attention to bills like the Fair Access to Banking Act in the U.S., which aims to prevent financial institutions from discriminating against legal industries. Proponents argue it could curb similar censorship in the future. Broader implications: a chilling effect on digital freedom. This saga underscores growing tensions between corporate policies, activist pressures, and free expression in the digital age. While Collective Shout frames their actions as protecting vulnerable groups, which again, the bullet points I agree with, but it seems like this is a group that is overextending. Again, her fake titties, her fake pixelated titties are not going to hurt you. Okay? The person behind the model who, did the modeling for it, they consented. They are a full-grown adult, and they consented to do that job. There is no exploitation. People need to just get over the fact that there are beautiful girls in games and move on to issues that actually matter. Focus more on the lessening the sexualization of little girls in, TV and movies, or, the sexual nature of some ads. Focus on the real stuff, not this stuff. This stuff, I assure you, her fake titties aren't going to hurt you. Slippery slope. Opponents warn of a slippery slope where payment processors could extend influence to other media such as books, films, and even non-adult games with mature themes. Then responding to the controversy is a major win. It means that gamers calling them constantly is effective. That being said, they are lying. Steam and Itch didn't decide out of the blue to remove games in the same week, both citing payment processors. Now, with this confirmation, both gaming platforms should restore all those games, right? Payment companies, including PayPal and Stripe, are censoring anything they don't like or is adult. There should be regulations preventing that censorship. Yeah. Again, the stuff that they're fighting for, great. But these are people who don't know when to stop. They overextend, and they reach their little vulture claws into everything that they deem inappropriate or whatever they don't like. A video game has a big busty woman in it? Well, that's sexual exploitation. No, it's not. Again, the model for, say, Eve, she consented to the job. So you have a video game character who's made of pixels. You have the model behind that character who consented to be there to do the job. She got paid for said job. There's no exploitation. But, oh no, we can't have big titties in games. Again, when it comes to the games that are basically made for the sole purpose of like, oh yeah, you go in here and you just brutally rape this woman. That I can understand. But Stellar Blade, Final Fantasy, anything that just has gorgeous women, keep your fucking vulture claws away from it. Okay? Just stop. Anyway, that's gonna do it for me. You guys know the drill. I'll see you guys later. Bye, guys.